Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show, Autumn is Here. I am your host, Francine Crawford. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Peter Murphy Lewis. And he is a newly documentarian. Very interesting career in what he started to do. So please welcome him to the show. Welcome, Peter. How are you doing today?
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm so glad that you were able to come on Autumn is Here today. You have a very interesting documentary that you're doing and how it came about. So can you just tell me a little bit about how it came about?
Yeah, the story is kind of like once in a lifetime weird connection, thinking about how you have one specific interaction that ends up changing your life forever. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was at a trade show in Nebraska, in Kearney, Nebraska, and I met a gentleman named Jeff Edom. And he was the president of the foundation of the Nebraska Healthcare Association. So they have a foundation where they do education and advocacy. And I told him, I said, why don't we do a documentary about the caregivers of Nebraska? And he said, that's interesting. Tell me more. And I said, well, I've been doing television for about 10 years, and I have a version of Dirty Jobs in South America. So I do a show similar to Mike Rowe, where I've done 125 different jobs over several seasons of television. And I said, why don't we take that same format and we show the caregivers? Because most people don't know how rewarding the job is. They don't know what it looks like. In America, we're afraid of nursing homes. We don't have time, or because of COVID, we quit volunteering. I said, why don't we show these passionate people who are still here? And he said, let's do it.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So what actually got you into the interest of doing caregivers or being aware of people that were taking care of other people?
The story there is organic. So I got recruited to work in an electronic healthcare records company in 2020 as the director of marketing. And within the first 2 or 3 months, I started up a podcast called LTC Heroes. And I was interviewing a person who now is a very close friend of mine named Bob Spielman. And he said, Peter, you're interviewing the wrong people. Executives are not interesting in this field. You should interview my CNAs. And I had already heard from my CEO of the company I was working for. He said, Peter, I think you should go become a CNA. You'd like it. So I heard from 2 different people that CNAs are the best and I should become a CNA. So I went and became a CNA. And then I started spending about 50% of all of my podcasts on CNAs. So when the documentary came about, I already knew that the secret to this market is the people who, work at nights, who, get our grandparents up. They remember what we're picky about, like who wants extra ice, who wants yellow Kool-Aid, who wants red Kool-Aid, who wants extra butter on their toast.
Okay. So before you did the documentary, you had some experience as being a CNA.
I
And
did.
yeah.
In theory, it looks like it. Like I had the paper, I did all the work, I did all of the training. I never really worked as a CNA, Francine. I did it so that I could understand them. My full-time job was a director of marketing at an electronic healthcare record. So I'm not a legit CNA in my opinion.
Okay. But then you got an appreciation for them and
I
you were
did.
able to go into their world. What do you think was so important to you that you think that everyone else should see?
Well, I think that there's probably 2 main things that people don't understand around caregivers. One is caregivers, CNAs will use the word that I'm just a CNA, a few of them.
Mm.
But the ones who know that they're delivering meaning and purpose in life, they're not just CNAs. These are architects of another stage of life of elderly. They are designers of memories to keep, me in the future, my parents soon, my grandparents in the past, happy and delivering quality of life. So I think that transition from people who just change diapers and beds and bathe, that's not the case, right? These people are much more important. And then the second element that I would say that was important to show them is how rewarding the job is for caregivers. Right? If you're going to make $1, $2, $3 less than you can at almost any restaurant or any retail store, why? Like, you try to explain that. And your job's harder. You're on your feet. You're underappreciated. And the world outside of your nursing home blames you for so many things that aren't your fault, like compliance and regulation and underpaid and bad billing and all of these regulatory things that the government has. It's because it is so rewarding. I talk to caregivers over and over and over who feel like they work with their grandparents every single day. They feel like their family. And I think that that's what we were able to portray in the documentary People Worth Caring About.
Okay, so what has been your reaction from people seeing your documentary and putting it out there in public? Like, what is the reaction to it? Is it what you wanted it to be?
It is tenfold beyond what I could have ever imagined. I'll give you a couple examples. When we premiered the documentary in Nebraska about 9 months ago, it was at the largest theater in Nebraska. It was a red carpet event. Lots of people came. The people who were in the documentary came, the bosses, owners, family members, politicians came. It was a really big, really, really big deal. One of the comments that really stood out to me was from an investor who was an investor in one of the hospice buildings that was in the documentary. And he came up and he said, Peter, I got in this business mostly from an investor point of view, but the way that you showed my business partner, her name's Kelly, and the way that you showed the staff, my employees, and how important their job is, I have a completely different appreciation for the investment that I've done. And now I feel like it matters so much more than just financially. And I saw Kelly yesterday when I was in Nebraska because I was back at the convention, and I told her that, and she hadn't heard those words from her business partner, right? Like, think of this entrepreneur who feels like, looks at numbers, but it hits his heart just like it hits yours and mine. The second thing that comes to mind is there was a woman named Rosalie who put on Facebook about a month after she saw it. She said, I just discovered the documentary People Worth Caring About, and I binge watched all 7 episodes in one sitting. And she said, it's completely changed my perspective and opinion of long-term care. She said, if I ever have the opportunity to live in long-term care, I'd feel honored.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the documentary is what's the title?
People Worth Caring About.
People Worth Caring About. Awesome. So now that you have the documentary and you're moving it forward, what do you think that how is it going to change the industry, or how is it going to change the way people look at caregivers or the system? How do you think it's going to change that?
In the beginning, our goal was a lot more modest, a lot more humble than that. Our goal at the beginning was to have some type of visual marketing asset that Nebraska could use to attract younger generation to combat the staffing crisis in long-term care. But really quickly, we realized that it was going to do more than staffing. They've been able to use the documentary to show it to politicians. They've been able to use it to help with fundraising, to increase attendance, to help with marketing. There are many members in long-term care in Nebraska who were not in the documentary communities who use clips of the documentary to show as virtual tours to prospective clients and residents before they come in. So, like, this is much amount of fun that you're going to have. And I would say, lastly, it's impacting the public narrative. There is a huge percentage of people who are not in our industry, who are not thinking about moving into a nursing home, and they are seeing it on their smart television, on social media, and it's helped changing that narrative.
Okay. So tell me the distribution, like where can you see it, and how has it been going across the different broadcasts?
Yeah, when we first decided to do the documentary together, we thought we were going to do a 20-minute short film that was going to be on YouTube. And 2 days into filming, I called the CEO of the association and I said, Jaylene, the quality of this is insane. Can we move from a 20-minute video to a 7-part series, and each episode is going to be 20 minutes? And she said, yeah. Well, then when I was finished, I shared it with a friend of mine from television who works in kind of the Netflix, Amazon Prime space. And she said, Peter, this is fabulous. She said, I would like to take this project on and see if we can get it to some platforms for streaming. And she helped me. And that's how we got on every single smart television in the United States about 6 weeks ago. So you can find us on Roku, Amazon, Apple, Hulu, and the other seasons we'll be applying for Netflix. Every other season we filmed 3 so far. We have 2 more coming out, so it'll be 5 seasons in the next year. Those will all be submitted to get on Netflix.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow, it is moving. That is big. That is great. I'm glad that you're getting attention to it. I'm glad that people are getting attention to being a caregiver and how difficult it can be to be a caregiver because, so many people are out there that are caregivers that are actually taking care of people, don't even realize that they're actually caregivers and there's support and there's help out there and there's facilities out there that are actually helping out and doing different things. So it's really great to see this. Let me ask you, is there something that you've learned going through this experience personally for yourself? Did you learn anything going through this experience and being introduced to caregivers or the whole system of caregiving? Is it something that kind of like maybe emotional for you?
Yeah, a couple. Um, just kind of going off the cuff. I think from a personal level, I feel so blessed to have my parents close to me. So I lived in South America for 15 years, so I didn't live close to my nuclear family. I married my wife in South America. I started a company. We had a son together, and we moved back to the U.S. in 2019. And I hadn't been close to my parents for a long, long time. And we moved to Wichita, Kansas, which wasn't close to my parents because it's the first job that I got. And I asked my parents about a year and a half ago if they would retire close to us in Kansas, and they did. And they live about, I don't know, 8 blocks away from me. And I see my mom and my dad 6 days out of the week. And the only reason they take the 7th day off is because they're tired of me and their only grandchild. So I feel so grateful that I have my parents close to me, and it makes me want to hold them close. And I told them, I said, if you go into a nursing home, I'm going to visit you every day. I'm going to make sure that you have the care similar to the CNAs that I documented in this documentary. I said another thing. I would say that it's taught me to be a better father. The patience that caregivers have, the way that they listen, the way that they develop or evolve their love languages. For instance, my favorite book, or the most important book in my life, is The 5 Languages of Love. And caregivers are really good at honing in and polishing all of their love languages as they take care of our grandparents. And that's carried home into my house. I don't know if my wife would agree. We'll have to ask her. But as a father, I think that it's made me bigger, a bigger capacity for care. And then the last thing is, I've never been a pessimist. I never thought that the perception of long-term care, what the way the public sees it, is anywhere close to the way that it really is. Like, I've always had a positive perception inside. My grandparents had amazing care. My dad took care of them inside. And so that never lined up. But I wasn't necessarily an optimist that we had a chance to actually change how people negatively think of nursing homes when they've never been in one. And all of this work, like, think of this, Francie. I've got 3 seasons so far. That's 21 episodes. Every episode has 3 different caregivers in it, right? So that's 63. Is that 63? 63 caregiver stories who are now changed the public perception. So I went from being neutral to being extremely optimistic. I see this as being turned into a movement.
Okay, great. Yes, when I was reading that, I said it sounds like a movement here. Now, your caregivers, they are caregivers that are in the facility.
These are, and they might not be caregivers in the way that you and I think of them, like a frontline caregiver. These might be maintenance. These might be kitchen aides. These might be nurse aides. Some of them are RNs, director of nursing administrators. We had I mean, we've had volunteers, we've had hair salon estheticians. So a little bit, anybody who wants to be around America's seniors and makes a choice to be there, that's who we're focusing on.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So they're really kind of care partners. They're
Mhm.
partnering in whatever they can do, which is that's
Mhm.
very interesting because you broaden it, you make it more,
Mhm.
and that's very interesting. And I'm hoping that this is something that um, maybe other states, because every state has a different rule around this and around nursing homes and stuff like that.
Right.
So if people can use this to see this as a model for different states to maybe change some of their laws or their rules, or get more help or funding and stuff like that, this would be great. This would be
Mm.
great. So, well, thank you so much for giving us this information and telling us about your docu-series. This is great. I can't wait to look at it. And is there anything else that we might have missed that you would like to share with the audience and let us know?
Yeah, I have an ask of the audience, which is, if you hear this, more than likely you already believe in people. You already believe in the power of care. But there's somebody in your world. There might be a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old or a single mom who's going to juggling two jobs. Have them watch one episode of People Worth Caring About. You can find on any smart television. You can find on YouTube, and say, "Hey, I see you as having a big heart. I see that you could make a difference, and long term is a great place for you to create a career." I met a lot of people. I met a lot of CEOs in the last year filming this who started off as volunteers and CNAs 10, 15 years ago. Almost every director of nursing and administrator, when they were in high school or college, they were a CNA. So give it a shot. Forward this to somebody who you think has the capacity to care for people like you do.
Okay, and it's people worth caring about. That's the
Mhm.
concept.
Mhm.
Okay, this is great, and this is Peter Murphy Lewis, and I'm so glad that you reached out for this and that you're doing this. This is amazing. This is what people need to do, so we understand a little bit more about it and be more sensitive to it, and maybe it encourage people to go into that field, which would be great because we need more people, more caregivers, and people like that. And part of Autumn is here is to try to get people more prepared and give them more information and education and allow them to understand a world that they may not even thought about yet, but they may be involved in it in some point in time. We are all aging and we have parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts, and we need these tools to use to
Yes.
help. So it's good to have an idea of it so you're a little bit more comfortable with it if it should happen to you. So
Mhm.
that's so great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and giving us some time on Autumn is here today. We really appreciate that.
Thanks for giving us room to talk to your audience and share the story. Appreciate it.
Okay, and I will definitely check it out and be looking at it, and I'll be back in touch with you soon. Okay.